The routing log was still printing when the first hull cleared the jump threshold. I had not looked up from my desk yet. I was watching the containment breach ticker on the lower processing feed, Level 4, Junction 9, pressure seal that maintenance had flagged 3 cycles ago, and nobody had replaced. And composing the distress burst in my head, Standard Sector Authority format, 1 compressed packet, facility designation, breach classification, personnel count at risk, resource request, pair crew, a med team, perhaps a structural engineer if Sector Authority felt generous. Had filed a dozen like it in 19 years at Orvith Station. I sent it at 06 Fort Station time. At 06:16 my communications panel lit up in a color I had never seen it use. I stared at it for a moment. Panel was displaying a relay node diagnostic flag I did not recognize. A subsystem error code from the VETH corridor relay that all outbound traffic from this station routes through. I pulled up the error string. It took me a full minute to parse what it was telling me, because the malfunction it described was not something I had been trained to anticipate. The relay node had experienced a compression cascade. My single distress burst. 1 packet, 14 kilobytes, addressed to Sector Authority, had been multiplied on transmission. The node's buffer had fragmented and rebroadcast the packet on 14 parallel frequencies before the fault catch had engaged. 14 identical copies. 14 different carrier bands. One of those bands, the node log told me in the flat procedural language of automated systems, was the Human Emergency Monitoring Frequency, a band that, per some treaty or compact or technical standards agreement I had never personally read, Orvith Station's relay was required to keep open as a pass-through. I read that line twice. Then I looked up at the observation dome. There were lights in the approach corridor that had not been there 60 seconds ago. I stood up from my desk, which I do not do quickly. I am not a young administrator, and the gravity plating on this level runs slightly high, and walked to the dome, viewport. The approach corridor to Orvith Station is a narrow transit lane, rated for 3 vessels simultaneously. What was currently in it was not 3 vessels. I counted 6 warship silhouettes before I stopped counting warships and started counting the other shapes behind them. 2 white-hulled vessels with the broad lateral profile I recognized from emergency services briefings I had attended years ago, hospital ships. Behind those a supply convoy. I could not get an accurate count from the dome angle, but the mass shadow on the corridor's passive scanner return suggested 8 to 12 hulls, all of them decelerating in formation. All of them, the approach transponder on my panel confirmed, broadcasting human fleet identification codes. My panel was also, at that moment, receiving a hail. I answered it because I did not know what else to do. The officer on the screen was human, which I had expected. Wearing a flag-grade uniform, I was not familiar with the specific rank insignia of which I had not expected. Teat. She looked at me with the expression of someone who has arrived at a large and complicated emergency and is conducting a rapid damage assessment. Station, this is Flag Captain Darren Solve, Combined Response Group 7. We received 14 concurrent distress signals from your coordinates, beginning at 06:14. We are on approach for multi-incident response. Please transmit your current casualty count and the locations of all active emergency sites, I said. There is 1 emergency site. She waited. Level 4, I said. Junction 9, a pressure seal failure. There are, I checked the breach ticker, 11 personnel in the affected corridor, all ambulatory, none injured. The breach is contained to a 12-meter segment. I requested a repair crew and a medical team. Flag Captain Solve looked at me for a moment. Then she looked briefly to her left, at something off-screen, and looked back. We received 14 copies of your distress signal, she said, on 14 separate frequencies, simultaneously. The relay node, I said. There was a compression cascade. It was a malfunction. She absorbed this. Expression did not change in any way I could read as frustration or relief. It changed in a way that suggested she was rapidly recalculating something. Are you telling me, she said, that this is a single incident, 11-person, non-critical containment breach? Yes. And the relay node that caused the malfunction, is it still active? I checked the diagnostic panel. It is still showing a fault flag. It has not been taken offline. She nodded once, very slightly. We'll handle it, she said, and closed the channel. I stood at my panel and watched what happened next. The 6 warships took up a distributed perimeter around the station. Not a defensive formation, I realized after a moment, but a coordination grid, the kind you establish when you are managing multiple simultaneous work sites and need clear vector lanes between them. The hospital ships moved to the docking approach and began the berthing sequence with an efficiency that suggested they had done it in far worse conditions. The supply convoy decelerated into a holding pattern at the edge of the approach corridor, organized and patient. Within 4 minutes of the channel closing, I had a human engineering team on level 4. I know this because their team lead calmed me directly to confirm the junction location and ask whether I wanted them to replace the seal with the same spec unit or upgrade the entire Junction 9 pressure assembly while they were there. I told them same spec would be sufficient, she said. We've got the upgraded assembly in inventory. Takes about the same time to install. Up to you. I told them to install the upgrade. The medical team that came off the first hospital ship was, by my count, 14 people. For 11 ambulatory personnel with no injuries, they set up a triage station in the level 4 corridor access bay, and then, finding nothing to triage, began conducting voluntary health screenings of every station crew member who walked past. I received 3 separate messages from my own staff in the first hour, each one mildly surprised and largely positive about the experience. The relay node was the part that occupied me longest, because I watched that repair from the dome. 2 human engineering shuttles approached the Veth corridor relay node from the station's outboard side. I am not a technical specialist, and I cannot tell you precisely what they did. I can tell you it took them 41 minutes. When they were finished, my panel's diagnostic flag cleared. The error code was gone. The node log showed a clean transmission record and a new entry at the bottom, a human maintenance tag, timestamp 7-3, with a notation I had to enlarge to read, compression cascade fault, cause identified, buffer segmentation error on frequency multiplex subroutine, version 14.2, flagged in Human Engineering Bulletin, T9 dated 11 years prior, buffer replaced. Subroutine patched. Command operator. Notify Relay Maintenance Authority of bulletin non-compliance. Node restored to full operation. I stared at that notation for a while. The bulletin had been issued 11 years ago by the Human Engineering Consortium that had supplied half the relay nodes in this corridor. The bulletin had recommended a patch. Somewhere in the chain between the consortium and Orvith Station's maintenance log, the recommendation had not been acted on. Flag Captain Solve hailed me again at 0719. Orvith Station, we're showing green across all repair items. Your level 4 breach is sealed. Upgraded assembly as discussed. Your relay node is patched and back online. Medical team is wrapping up on your crew level. Do you have any additional items before we begin withdrawal? I had been composing my incident report in my head for the past hour. I had not found a category for it yet. No, I said. No additional items. She paused. For what it's worth, the 14-copy scenario. We've logged it as a single incident, 1 distress signal, relay malfunction amplified. It'll read as 1 entry in our response record. I appreciated that more than I said. Thank you, I told her. For all of it. She gave me a small nod. Not warm, not cold. The nod of someone who has done the thing that needed doing and is already thinking about the next one. Close enough, she said, and closed the channel. Combined Response Group 7 was out of the approach corridor by 0744. I watched the last hull clear the threshold from the observation dome and then went back to my desk and finished my incident report. Resource request, submitted. 1 repair crew, 1 medical team. Under resource response, received. I wrote what had actually arrived, because the form required it, and because I could not in honesty write anything else. Under classification, I left it blank for 20 minutes. Then I wrote relay malfunction. Resolved and submitted it, because that was the only part I was certain of. The relay node has transmitted clean ever since. The Junction 9 pressure assembly has not flagged once. I still do not know which category covers what happened. I have looked through the Sector Authority incident taxonomy 3 times. The closest entry is over response to misrouted distress signal, but the definition requires the response to have been unhelpful, to have caused disruption to normal operations. I cannot, in good conscience, file it under that.